somewhere between the ages of 70 and 75, something happens to the human body that almost nobody warns you about, and it doesn't happen with a dramatic event, no fall, no injury, no diagnosis. It happens quietly in the background, while you're going about your normal life, and by the time most people notice it, they've already lost a meaningful piece of what once made getting up from a chair, climbing stairs, or carrying groceries feel effortless. I'm talking about muscle loss, and here's the part that should really grab your attention. Research suggests this process can speed up dramatically after 70, if nothing is done to counter it. And yet it's also one of the most preventable and even reversible parts of aging, when you know exactly what to do. Today I'm going to walk you through a simple 10-minute daily routine, something you can do in your own living room, with no gym membership, no fancy equipment, and no complicated instructions, that may help you hold on to strength, balance, and independence for years longer than you might expect. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this happens and exactly what to do about it. Starting today, let's talk for a moment about why this matters so much. Because I don't want this to just be a list of exercises. I want you to actually understand what's happening inside your own body. Because once you understand it, you'll be far more motivated to stick with it. The scientific term for age-related muscle loss is sarcopenia, and researchers have found that many adults can lose a noticeable percentage of their muscle mass per decade after the age of 30, with that rate often picking up speed significantly after 70. Muscle isn't just about how your arms look in short sleeves. Muscle is what allows you to rise from a chair without pushing off with your hands. It's what keeps you steady when you step off a curb. It's what protects your joints when you carry a bag of groceries up the front steps. And it's a major part of what keeps older adults living independently in their own homes, rather than needing help with everyday tasks. So when we talk about preventing muscle loss, we're not talking about vanity, we're talking about independence. And that's exactly why I think this topic deserves so much more attention than it gets. Here's something that might surprise you. And honestly, it's the reason so many people give up before they even start. A lot of folks assume that once muscle loss begins, it's a one-way street, that there's nothing to be done except accept it. But that's simply not accurate. Multiple studies on older adults, including some involving people well into their 80s and 90s, have shown that muscles remain remarkably responsive to the right kind of regular movement, even later in life. In other words, your muscles are still listening, and they are still capable of adapting as long as you give them a reason to. That reason is consistent moderate resistance, meaning movements that ask your muscles to work a little harder than they're used to, done regularly in a way your body can safely handle. Now, before I go any further, I want to be completely honest with you about something important. What I'm about to share with you today is general health education, based on widely recognized exercise science principles for healthy aging, and it is not a substitute for guidance from your own doctor or physical therapist, especially if you have any joint issues, heart conditions, balance concerns, or other health conditions that affect movement. If you're currently recovering from surgery, dealing with an injury, or managing a chronic condition, please have a conversation with your healthcare provider before starting any new movement routine, so they can help you adapt it safely to your specific situation. With that said, for most healthy older adults, gentle, progressive movement like what I'm about to describe is something health experts widely encourage, because the risk of staying sedentary is often far greater than the risk of moving mindfully. So let's get into the actual problem a little deeper, because understanding the why here is going to make the how feel a lot more meaningful. As we age, our bodies naturally produce less of certain hormones that support muscle maintenance, and at the same time, many older adults unintentionally become less active, sometimes because of joint discomfort, sometimes because of fear of falling, and sometimes simply because daily life doesn't require as much physical effort as it once did. And here's the tricky part. Less activity leads to more muscle loss, and more muscle loss makes activity feel harder, which leads to even less activity. It becomes a slow, quiet cycle that can sneak up on people over the years, without them ever realizing it's happening. Until one day, getting up from the couch or climbing a flight of stairs suddenly feels much harder than it used to. I want you to picture two people for a moment. Both 72 years old, both starting from a similar place physically. One of them continues living life exactly as they have been, sitting most of the day doing very little intentional movement, assuming that's just what getting older looks like. The other person commits to just 10 minutes a day of simple, purposeful movement, the kind we're about to walk through together. 5 years later at 77. The difference between these two people is often not subtle. One may be struggling with stairs, needing help carrying groceries and feeling less confident on uneven ground. The other may still be gardening, playing with grandchildren on the floor and walking through the neighborhood without a second thought. The exercises themselves are almost never the dramatic part of this story. The real difference comes from consistency, from choosing day after day to give your muscles a reason to stay strong. So here's what I want you to keep in mind as we move forward together in this video. This isn't about becoming a bodybuilder. It's not about intense workouts that leave you sore and discouraged. It's about smart, gentle, targeted movement. The kind that respects where your body is right now while gently encouraging it to stay capable for years to come. In just a moment, I'm going to introduce you to the very first movement in our 10-minute routine. And I chose this one to go first for a very specific reason. Because it directly targets one of the most common reasons older adults lose their independence, the ability to safely stand up and sit down without straining. But before I show you exactly how to do it, I want you to think about your own daily life for a second. How many times a day do you get up from a chair, from your bed, from your car? Now imagine if that simple movement became noticeably easier, not harder as the years go by. That's exactly what we're building toward, so let's get into it. Welcome back, and let's dive right into the first movement of our 10-minute routine, something physical therapists often call the sit-to-stand exercise. And if you've ever struggled to get up from a low chair, or found yourself instinctively pushing off with your hands or the armrests, this one is especially important for you. Here's how it works. Find a sturdy chair, one that doesn't wobble or roll, and sit toward the front edge of it with your feet flat on the floor, about hip-width apart. Now instead of using your hands, cross your arms over your chest, lean slightly forward, and rise to a standing position using only the strength of your legs. Then lower yourself back down slowly and with control, rather than just dropping into the seat. That's one repetition. If standing without your hands feels too difficult right now, that's completely fine. Start by using your hands for support, and simply focus on the slow, controlled lowering part of the movement, because researchers have found that controlled, slower muscle lengthening can be just as valuable for building strength as the lifting portion itself. Over time, as your legs adapt, you can gradually reduce how much you rely on your hands. This single movement mirrors one of the most important physical tasks of daily life, and practicing it regularly is directly connected to maintaining the kind of leg strength that keeps people independent well into their 80s and 90s. The second movement I want to introduce you to targets your upper body, and it's something you can do using nothing more than a sturdy wall, which makes it perfect for anyone who feels nervous about getting down on the floor. It's called a wall push-up. Stand facing a wall about arm's length away, and place your palms flat against the wall at roughly shoulder height and shoulder width apart. Keeping your body in a relatively straight line from head to heels, slowly bend your elbows and lean your body toward the wall, then push back to your starting position. This gentle movement works your chest, shoulders, and the back of your arms, all areas that quietly weaken over time if they're never challenged. And upper body strength plays a bigger role in daily independence than most people realize, from lifting a suitcase into a car trunk to steadying yourself if you ever start to lose your balance. Now here's an important curiosity gap I want to open up for you, because there's a movement coming up in just a moment that many fitness experts consider one of the single most important exercises for anyone over 70, even more important in some ways than traditional strength training, and it has almost nothing to do with building bigger muscles. It has everything to do with something else entirely. Something that, when it fails, is directly linked to the most serious injuries older adults experience. I'll reveal exactly what that movement is and how to do it safely in just a moment. But first, let's talk about the third piece of our 10-minute routine. Standing marches. Standing marches are wonderfully simple, and they work double duty for both your leg muscles and your balance. Simply stand near a wall, countertop, or sturdy piece of furniture for light support if needed, and lift one knee up toward your waist, as if you were marching in place. Then lower it back down and lift the other knee. Continue alternating for about 30 seconds to a minute. This movement engages your hip flexors and core muscles, areas that are essential for maintaining a steady, confident walking pattern as you age. And it also gently challenges your balance in a controlled, safe way, which brings us directly to that important movement I mentioned a moment ago. That movement is the single leg balance hold, and here's why researchers and physical therapists place so much emphasis on it. Falls are one of the leading causes of serious injury among older adults, and much of what determines whether someone falls often comes down to how quickly their body can react and stabilize itself when their balance shifts unexpectedly, whether that's from stepping on an uneven sidewalk or turning quickly to answer someone calling their name. Balance is a bit like a muscle itself, in the sense that it responds to practice, and the encouraging news is that even a small amount of consistent balance practice has been associated in research with a meaningfully reduced risk of falls in older adults. To practice this safely, stand next to a sturdy countertop or the back of a chair, lightly resting your fingertips on it for support, and slowly lift one foot a few inches off the ground, holding that position for as long as feels comfortable and safe, starting with just a few seconds if needed. Switch to the other leg, and over time, as your balance improves, you can practice using less and less support from your hand, always keeping safety as the top priority, and never practicing this near stairs or on unstable surfaces. I want to pause here for a moment, because I think it's important to acknowledge something honestly. If the idea of balancing on one leg feels intimidating or even a little scary right now, that feeling is completely normal, and it doesn't mean you're not capable. It simply means your balance system hasn't been challenged in this specific way in a while. Every single person who has ever improved their balance started exactly where you are right now. And the goal is never to rush this. It's simply to practice a little bit, consistently, and let your body gradually rebuild that confidence and capability over weeks and months. So far, we've covered the sit-to-stand movement for your legs, wall push-ups for your upper body, standing marches for your hip strength and coordination, and the single leg balance hold for fall prevention. That's 4 powerful movements already, each one targeting a different piece of what keeps a person strong, steady, and independent as the years go by. But there's one more essential piece of this puzzle that I haven't touched on yet, and it might honestly be just as important as the exercises themselves, because you can do all the right movements in the world and still not get the results you're hoping for if this next piece is missing from your daily routine. In the final part of this video, I'm going to share that missing piece with you, walk you through the complete 10-minute routine from start to finish so you can follow along easily, and give you a few simple ways to make this new habit one that actually sticks, rather than something you try for a week and forget about by next month. Alright, here's that missing piece I promised you, and it might be the most overlooked factor in this entire conversation about muscle loss: protein. You can do every single movement we've talked about today with perfect form and real consistency. But if your body doesn't have enough building blocks to actually repair and strengthen that muscle tissue afterward, you're leaving a huge amount of progress on the table. Protein provides the amino acids your muscles need to recover and grow a little stronger after being challenged. And here's something many nutrition researchers have pointed out. Older adults often need relatively more protein per meal than younger adults to trigger the same muscle-building response, partly because the body's ability to use protein efficiently tends to decline somewhat with age. This doesn't mean you need protein powders or expensive supplements. It simply means being a little more intentional about including a good source of protein at each meal. Things like eggs, plain yogurt, beans, lentils, fish, chicken, or cottage cheese, spread out fairly evenly across breakfast, lunch, and dinner, rather than saving most of your protein for one meal at the end of the day, which is a common pattern that tends to work against muscle maintenance. Now let's put it all together, because I want you to be able to actually do this routine today, not just understand it in theory. Here's how a simple 10-minute session might flow. Start with 1 to 2 minutes of sit-to-stands from your sturdy chair, aiming for as many controlled repetitions as feels comfortable, remembering that quality matters far more than speed. Then move to 2 minutes of wall push-ups, focusing on slow, controlled movement rather than rushing through repetitions. Next, spend about 2 minutes on standing marches, alternating knees at a comfortable pace while holding light support if you need it. Then dedicate 2 to 3 minutes to single-leg balance holds, alternating legs and always keeping a stable surface within reach for safety. And finally, finish with a couple of minutes of gentle stretching for your legs, arms, and back, which helps your muscles cool down and can support flexibility. Another piece of the independence puzzle that works hand in hand with strength and balance. That's it. 10 minutes once a day, and if some days feel harder than others, that's completely normal and nothing to be discouraged about. The real magic here isn't in any single session, it's in the accumulation of these sessions week after week, month after month. Many experts in aging and exercise science emphasize that consistency over time matters far more than intensity on any single day. So if you can only manage 5 minutes on a particularly tired day, that's still 5 minutes more than doing nothing. And it still counts. I also want to share a few honest, practical tips for making this new habit actually stick. Because I know from talking with so many people in your age group that the biggest challenge usually isn't understanding what to do. It's remembering to actually do it, day after day. First, try attaching this routine to something you already do every day without fail. Right after brushing your teeth in the morning, or right before you sit down to watch your favorite evening show. This is a strategy behavioral researchers often call habit stacking, and it works because you're borrowing the reliability of an existing habit to anchor a brand new one. Second, keep a simple visual reminder somewhere you'll see it, a sticky note on the bathroom mirror, or a small checkmark on a calendar each day you complete your routine, because that small visual proof of consistency tends to be surprisingly motivating over time. And third, be patient and kind with yourself, because meaningful strength and balance improvements typically build gradually over weeks and months, not overnight, and the goal is progress, not perfection. As we wrap up today, I want you to really sit with this idea for a moment. The difference between the person who continues life exactly as it's always been and the person who commits to just 10 intentional minutes a day isn't usually visible after 1 week or even 1 month. But give it a year and the difference can be profound. The difference between needing help getting up from a low chair and rising confidently on your own, the difference between hesitating at the top of a staircase and walking down it without a second thought, the difference between watching your grandchildren play from a lawn chair and getting down on the grass to join them, that difference is built one small, consistent choice at a time. And every single one of those choices is completely within your control, starting today. If this video gave you something valuable, something that made you feel a little more hopeful, a little more equipped, or a little more in control of your own strength and independence, I'd love for you to share your thoughts down in the comments. Tell me which of these movements you're going to try first, or if you're already doing something similar, share what's worked for you, because your experience genuinely helps other people watching who might be feeling unsure about where to start. If you know someone, a parent, a neighbor, a friend, who could use a little encouragement and a realistic plan like this one, please consider sharing this video with them. It might be exactly the nudge they need. And if you'd like more honest, practical videos like this one on healthy aging, strength, balance, memory, and overall wellness, go ahead and subscribe, because there is so much more valuable content coming your way, and I would truly love to have you here for it. Take care of yourself, be proud of every small step you take, and I'll see you in the next video.